Accurate scale doesn't mean nothing if your measurements are not accurate, because you bump it or something moves, the car moves, your gauges move, your hose move, can throw your readings all off. Especially if it happens in the middle of the process while you're weighing in, or when you turned your back or leaned over to grab something, something moves and you don't notice it and it throws your scale off. Now let me show you one example. Wind will be one example. Okay, another one is a hose flop, or pressurization or depressurization. Have you ever noticed when you add pressure to a hose, it kind of tweaks, deforms, and moves? Well, when it does that, it exerts a force on the tank and the gauges, and it'll actually change the measurement of your scale. And if you weren't looking and you didn't catch it, you can throw your weight off. Old cars 20 years ago that had 2.5, 3.5, 5 pounds of refrigerant on it, no problem. If the hose moved a little bit and you were an ounce or two off, you'll never know it, and it won't be a big deal. Today's cars that have refrigerant charges of less than a pound or around a pound, take just for example, this is only 525 grams. It's just right around a pound. Some cars are only 390 grams. If you're an ounce or two off, that's a big difference, especially in hot weather. So let me show you. Let's zero out. We are zeroed out. You see my hoses? Right now, this hose is under high pressure. It's under tension. Let me take it to a neutral position. It's not in a neutral position where the hose wants to relax. It's actually under a torque, under a pressure. And when you release that pressure, the hose will relax and take that exertion of force off the scale where it's attached to the scale, throwing off your numbers. Let's get it in a neutral position and see what happens. Now, if this was just on a corner here and the car vibrated, or you close the door, you get inside and the hose jumps, see how it just wants to find its neutral position. Okay, it doesn't want to move now. Whether I hit it to the left or right, that's its neutral position. But look over here. We just increased by 25 grams. Sometimes you could go negative by 25 grams. Sometimes you could go 50 grams, 100 grams. It all depends on the torque and force that's exerted on the hose that'll change. So if you were weighing up as this happened, and you go, okay, it's weighing in slow, I'll go in the car, I want to get something, I want to bend over and grab a wrench, and this moved and you didn't see it move, while the numbers were going up or down, if you were recovering, it just added or decreased the amount of refrigerant going into the vehicle. You will be that much wrong at that time, even though your scale will say, let's use this as an example, 525 grams. In this case, you would be 20 grams off. Not so bad. But actually, this could be 50 grams or 120 grams. You would never know, because the refrigerant was feeding in while you didn't look at it, and it's going up, and you went over to disconnect something or do, and then you turn back and it's up while it was already up and you didn't know it, and it's telling you it has 120 grams in more or 120 grams in less. And when you're dealing with a system right around a pound, 120 grams, you're approaching 3 ounces of refrigerant. 3 ounces of refrigerant on a Prius is enough to send it over 440 psi on the high side on a hot day and shut the system down. That's how bad this is, and guys do this all the time. When it comes to weighing and scheduling, pay attention that your hoses, your scale, everything is in a neutral position. Nothing is binding. Make sure the parking brake is on, because especially when you're doing hybrid, you ever notice when you start some of the hybrid vehicles and the engine comes on, it kind of engages the transmission and the vehicle jumps up forward. Well, if you were weighing in refrigerant while you were doing that, and you already zeroed out your scale and you're going up and you got in your car and you're putting in some refrigerant, the car is on but the engine is off because it's a hybrid. And you know how hybrids like to start all by themselves, and then the engine engages, the engine transmission torque, the vehicle jump forward a little bit, just an inch or two, and then relaxed. it bumped your gauges and something moved and it threw your pressures off, and then you weigh in the right amount. But even your scale will show it put in the right amount, it'll be wrong because something moved. So this is a little secret trick of the trade that throws a lot of technicians into trouble. And then they're trying to diagnose a low charge or a high charge, and they go, well, I did it right. It was right on that 525 grams, like it should say here, but why do I have 400 PSI on the high side? Wow, something is plugged up or something like that, and they start replacing parts. Or they go, it's 125 grams low, and it's going, I got the right charge in there, the factory says it's right, and it's not cooling right when it gets hot, and I know there's no leak, but it was because something moved. And so somebody, well, the expansion valve must be bad, or the condenser's plugged, and guys start guessing. You have no idea how many wrong parts get replaced. And I can't even count the number of times that I've had vehicles come to me that came from a couple other shops or the same shop who tried to re-repair a couple times, and they were just learning, and they didn't understand that wind blowing on your scale, a car jumping forward, going in and out of gear, you shut the door and a hose moves because of the vibration, because the hose was just caught on a tip a little bit, and then the vibration, because it was under tension, it moved a little bit and threw their scale off. This happens so many times. So this is just a little tip. Really make sure nothing moves and nobody can bump your scale while you're not looking, because there's nothing like another technician or a customer walking by your scale and they kick your scale a little bit, and that moved it, and it can move it a lot more. And or if the can gets shifted and that moved it and you didn't see that, this happens a lot. In my earlier days, I didn't pay attention so much to people around me, but it's happened to me. And you know, guys don't think, other technicians don't know how important that scale is not to get bumped. And it happens, somebody doesn't say anything, and you were already partially through your charge, or you're performing some procedure, and it really can mess your diagnosis up. So keep track, pay attention to your hoses, because even if you put it in there and this hose is under force, when you open up to release refrigerant, the hose loses that maybe 100 PSI or 70 PSI, whatever it is in that hose, it loses it and it relaxes. And it's like a spring on your tank that's attached to your scale. It could torque or untorque the reading on your scale while you're measuring in, and you have to compensate that and know what the end result is. And this is why it's really important, every time you use a tank, you measure the tank empty without a hose on it, you take down that reading and you write it down. When you finished your whole job with your hose disconnected, re-weigh your tank, and that will tell you the true measurement of refrigerant that actually came out of the tank. Do not trust your scale, even if it's a very accurate, like this NAVAC scale. Extremely accurate, within 5 grams, but it doesn't matter. Human error is the worst indicator. It's the part of the formula you don't calculate on. Human error. Humans make errors, things happen. So always weigh your tank before, weigh your tank after, and it should equal the amount that you put in there. If it doesn't, take it back out and do it again, because something went wrong. All right, that's my tip of the day. A little long-winded, but I really wanted guys to understand that if anything happens to your tank, your scale, your hoses during a recharge, it'll throw you way off. See you guys.